Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the SLDC Board of Directors meeting being held on June 20th, 2024 at 8 a.m. This is our last regular board meeting for fiscal year 2024. So really excited about the great progress that we've made over the last fiscal year and look forward to the work we have moving forward. A lot of exciting things on the agenda today. So we'll go ahead and move forward. We're calling the meeting to order. Can I have a roll call, please?
Sure. Director Gilbert?
Here.
Director Sean Spencer?
Present.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard?
Here.
Director Reed?
Here.
And Chair Richardson?
Present. We have a quorum. So we'll move to the first item on the agenda today, the approval of the minutes for May 16th, 2024 regular scheduled board meeting that was held via Zoom. I know that the minutes were shared from Celeste to the board of directors. Any comments, concerns with the minutes? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from May 16th?
So move, Gilbert.
Second.
With a motion and a second, can I have a roll call vote, please?
Director Gilbert?
Aye.
Director Sean Spencer? Hubbard?
Ladies, yep.
Aye.
Alderwoman Kara Spencer?
Aye.
Director Reed?
Aye.
And Chair Richardson?
Aye. All aye votes, the motion passes to approve the minutes from the May 16th, 2024 regular scheduled board meeting. The first item that we have today as a presentation actually is from our partners at King Independent Research. I know Stacy will provide some background and context of the disparity study and all of the work that went into the disparity study over the past couple of years, actually. For the first time ever, the city of St. Louis and St. Louis County partnered to identify one partner to be able to facilitate both the disparity study for the city and the county. The goal was to ensure that the methodology was consistent across the city and the county. However, we have our own separate disparities that we are responsible for remedying. So there were two separate disparity studies published, one for the city and one for the county. However, the methodology is the same. So with that, I'll pass it over to Ms. Stacy Fowler, our Senior Vice President of Economic Empowerment, to tee up the presentation for King Independent Research.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Richardson. Good morning, Board of Directors. We are very excited that we are able to now present the results of our disparity study. There is two disparity studies that they will be kind of giving you information on. One will be, of course, on the contract side of the house, and then the other will be workforce. We went through the procurement process to procure King Independent Research to provide us this study. We have done our due diligence of sharing this with the community. We've given them opportunity to make their comments to determine if there needed to be some changes. They've gone back and included all of the questions or the comments that individuals made from the community. Now we want to be able to present a complete package to you for your review and understanding as we move forward to make some changes in how we monitor and compliance and certification for our small and minority business community. And with that, I guess I will turn it over to Dave from King Independent Research Study.
Thank you, folks. Today
I'm sorry, should have said you.
It's okay, Stacy. If you could put this in screen mode. There we are. Thank you, Stacy. Thank you, Board of Directors. We're excited to be here today to present the results of the SLDC, City of St. Louis and St. Louis County Disparity Study. So you'll be looking today at the City of St. Louis and SLDC results. I'm Annette Humkina, Principal with Keene Independent. With me today is David Keene, Principal with Keene Independent, Janine Kiritsis, our Chief Lifting Officer, as well as Blanca Montero, our Senior Consultant. And today you're going to hear a little bit about just an introduction to who we are. We'll talk, and then we're going to jump right into the results of the disparity studies, both the contract, like Stacy said, and the workforce disparity studies, as well as recommendations for both. Janine?
Sure. This was the Keene Independent Study Team who participated in this study. We're a national 24-person economic consulting firm. We are diverse. We have people of color, people in the LGBTQ community. Everyone is very seasoned in conducting and participating in disparity studies. We have the strongest methodology in the practice area today. And excuse me, we also have done over 200 related disparity studies since the starting of the firm. We also, during the study, had the assistants and the sub-consultants working very closely with us to enrich this study. We had 2 local Black women-owned firms who conducted the in-depth interviews and did community outreach. That was Mary Ann Taylor Crate, principal at Added Dimensions, Crystal Allen Dallas, principal at Excel Business Concepts. We had Keith Weiner as well, who did the legal review and legal analysis. He's the partner at Holland and Knight and has participated in many of our disparity studies. And then we also had Sanjay Verdula, president of Customer Research International, a minority-owned firm who conducted our availability survey. Blanca?
Thank you. We started the disparity study collecting data, contract information, subcontract information from the city and from SLDC. I need to thank you, all the team in SLDC and the city for the information provided. For each, we collected data from 2016 to 2021. For each of the procurements that were collected, we identified a business race, ethnicity, gender, and size of the business. We also identified type of work performed and where the firm was located. With this information, we were able to identify that most of the city spending was in firms with a location in the City of St. Louis Metropolitan Statistical Area, in the MSA. More than 89% of contract dollars went to firms with these locations. With this information, we were able to start a survey with thousands of business owners. We asked about if they were interested in qualifying, providing services to SLDC and to the city. We wanted to know about the capabilities, what was the largest contract that they bid or were awarded, and also we collected information about their barriers in the marketplace, and also we collect information about ownership, race and gender of ownership of those firms. With that information, we were able to calculate availability benchmarks using a contract-by-contract weighted availability, where we control by size of contract, role of the firm, if they bid as a prime or a soft, and if they were during business and bid capacity. Dave?
Great. Well, let's get into the results. We're going to present for the city, including tax incentivized projects that might be managed by SLDC. We're going to present some overall results, and then we have some specific results for tax incentivized projects. This is all on the contract disparity study side, and then we'll get into the workforce study. So as you know, you have a Minority and Women Business Enterprise program. It appears that with the program, utilization is much higher than without the program. So about 1/3 of the contract dollars that we examined overall, where the program was applied, went to minority and women-owned firms. And this includes firms that are not MBE or WBE certified. We looked at both certified and non-certified firms. That was still somewhat below the availability benchmark for contracts, that set of contracts. So the 32% is good. It's not quite what you might expect for based on the availability, and it's not quite what you would expect for the results you'd hope to see by individual race and ethnic group, which we'll show you in a minute. But the big story is, without the program, the utilization is only 19%. And you might ask, well, is that because of the unique types of contracts that aren't subject to the program, or maybe too small? And the answer is no, that you would actually expect about 1/2 of the contract dollars to go to minority and women-owned firms on the set of contracts that we examined where the program wasn't applied, and you only got 19%. So the program that, one of the questions for the city that the city needs to answer based on the results of the disparity study is, do we need to continue the program? And this is one of the results that indicates that yes, but for the program, you would see the results on the right rather than the results on the left. Next slide. Here we break it down by group. So we had the left bar and the right bar and the bar charts on the previous slide. Here we actually give you the results down to the 100th of a percentage point. So we're very precise in our disparity studies. The utilization shows the share of dollars going to each individual group. So, and this is looking at all contracts, whether or not the program applied for the city and tax incentivized projects. So we're looking at city awarded contracts and those tax incentivized projects awarded by others where the program might have been applied, or SLDC might have been reviewing those contracts. Here we see 18% of the dollars going to minority-owned firms, 10.61% going to white women-owned firms, for a total of about 29%. And the availability numbers are the benchmarks based on who is available in the marketplace and qualified and interested in doing different types and sizes of city and city contracts, subcontracts, and tax incentivized firm contracts and subcontracts. So those are benchmarks. The only group for which the utilization exceeded the benchmark was Asian American-owned firms. And for each other group, utilization was below availability, in some cases substantially below. And the third column in this slide, which is critical because courts have really keyed in on this third column, is how close to the availability benchmark did you get? A disparity score of 100 means that you met that benchmark. A score less than 80 means there's a substantial disparity. So overall for the city, there is a substantial disparity for minority and women-owned firms combined, and there's a substantial disparity for African American, Hispanic American, Native American owned firms, even with the program being in place for many of the contracts. Let's turn to the next slide. Here we have with program on the left, the same type of table, and without program on the right. And you see the big difference between the 32% utilization of minority and women-owned firms, which you see on the left with the program, and the 18% utilization of minority and women-owned firms without the program on the right. Now, there's some reasons these aren't identical contracts, but we still, when we controlled for the difference in contracts, the benchmark for availability was not lower for the contracts without the program. It was actually higher. If you key in on the results on the right, and we think this is indicative, if you did not have any minority and women business program, this is what you would see at the city and on tax incentivized projects. You would see utilization being substantially below availability for each racial and ethnic group and for white women-owned firms. Each one of those disparities is substantial. So the city should consider that when it makes decisions about whether to continue its minority and women business program. We have some results specifically for tax incentivized projects on the next slide. Here you see utilization of 36%. Of course, these are largely with the program applied, and but we see the program, even though there's 15% of the contract dollars going to African American owned firms, that's not what you would expect. You would expected more. Same thing for Hispanic and Native American owned firms. So even with the program, there's more work to be done to ensure that African American, Hispanic American, Native American owned firms are in a good position to take advantage of the opportunities through the Minority and Women Business Program. We actually found that utilization exceeded availability for white women-owned firms and for Asian American-owned firms on those contracts. That doesn't mean the program is not needed on for SLDC or tax incentivized contracts. It's showing who benefited the most from the program. Okay, let's get into our recommendations based on all of this information. In conclusions, we found evidence of disparities, substantial disparities for businesses owned by African Americans, Asian Americans, Hispanic Americans, Native Americans, and white women when for the city contracts and tax incentivized projects where the program did not apply. And overall, there were still substantial disparities for African American, Hispanic American, Native American owned firms, for white women owned firms, even with the program, if we look at all contracts. This really summarizes information that's between the city and the county reports. Is thousands of pages of analysis, both of quantitative information of city contracts, tax incentivized projects, the marketplace as a whole, what are conditions in access to capital for minority and women-owned firms compared to other firms, what are barriers in the marketplace. And then we talked with hundreds and hundreds of firms, firm owners, others in the marketplace that we went to directly, or they came to us to hear about their perceptions of how they were treated in the marketplace, if there's any differences based on the race, ethnicity, and gender of the individual or the business owner. And so there's a substantial information in the report to be able to make decisions about the future of the city's programs. Next slide. Our interpretation of the results is that the city should consider the following: establishing an overall 3-year aspirational goal, just as a statement for what minority and women business participation can be. And we have some numbers in the report to consider. And second one is to refining the program elements so that they are more effective and more narrowly tailored. And this includes contract-specific construction goals and expanding that to include professional services contracts. Continuing the bid discount program element of the program is something that the city should consider, which is point number 3. And adding a small purchases component to the program to get people in the door, not necessarily as a subcontractor, but working directly with the city, is the small contracts program element that we think is missing and could be effective. Point 5 is a lot of these issues are regional, and working with other regional partners as a strong leader in trying to level the playing field in the local marketplace. The negative effects of racial or gender discrimination against business owners in the St. Louis marketplace affects firms not only in doing work with the city and the county or on tax incentivized projects, but in the broader private sector as well. And the city can be effective in leading the charge and being a good partner with others in combating issues such as discrimination in finance, discrimination in bonding, discrimination in prime contractor selection of subcontractors. And then you will need sufficient resources, information resources, staff resources, and training for program success. Some of our recommendations are asking the city and SLDC to do more. And to be able to do more, you need the resources to do that. This is a very brief presentation of the results of the contract disparity study. Let's quickly go to the workforce, which was equally important.
Dave, can I quickly add that some of the recommendations may apply more readily to the city, and some may include both the city and SLDC.
Right, and the different programs, the tax incentivized goals program many of the recommendations that we make under point 2 would apply to that. Okay, let's go to the next slide. We also looked at workforce, as Blanca mentioned, for firms doing business with the city, workers working on city projects do not come from just within the city limits. Workers come from throughout the metro area. So it is a metro area wide focus for any remedies. 90% of the workers on city projects live in the metro area. Very small, relatively small percentage live within the city. Next slide. We got data on workers and on city projects, on county projects, and where programs applied. And then we were able to look at what's happening in the broader marketplace, which is largely without any kind of workforce programs. We're going to skip the disparity slides. They exist, but we're going to go right to the conclusions. There are disparities for and other evidence of discrimination affecting employment, particularly for women in the construction trades and for African-Americans in the construction trades in the local construction industry. And there is a work hours goals program, which is, if you think of this as a demand side program, it's saying, hey, we want contractors to make it a priority to have workers of color, women workers on city projects. We think alone that program may not be impactful and needs to be combined with some supply programs where you are getting more people that have been, more groups that have been historically underrepresented into the construction trades. And that's a multifaceted challenge or to be effective, it needs to have many components, and it needs to start early when young adults are considering careers and being exposed to what is possible, especially if they really don't have a realistic path of going for a 4-year college degree, not getting, not being able to hold down a full-time job, not having the finances to be able to do that. Construction is highly skilled work where you get a lot of training. The key difference between that and a 4-year college degree is you get paid while doing it. And for many individuals, that's a necessary condition to get that training, is you have to earn a living while doing it. And there's many opportunities in the metro area where the city can increase the effectiveness of those efforts to get people who this is a great career opportunity for them, but it's largely closed off. For example, where are the training facilities and can you physically get to them? Issues such as that. So yes, there is evidence of discrimination, particularly for women and for African Americans who aren't in the trades now or really could be if given the opportunities. And we have some recommendations for the city. Consider on the next slide. So this is a metro area problem. It needs a metro area wide approach. It can focus on specific geographic areas within the St. Louis metro area. But think of this as a metro area wide problem because that's where contractors draw their labor. We were recommending aspirational goals for representation of different groups in the construction trades. This should be very specific and focus. The third recommendation or area for city consideration is to work on pipeline. What is the supply of workers, and our underrepresented workers, including African Americans and women, getting an equal opportunity or a boost into the supply of future workers. Often this will start with pre-apprenticeship program and then getting into apprenticeship program where you may be paid, and then getting into being successful as you develop your career and being able to sustain your career in the trades to become a journey worker. There are the workforce goals program for women that could be maintained. We think we have evidence to support that. The city will need to consider whether that meets the constitutional standards, which apply to the contract side as well. There's the Supreme Court decision that makes it very difficult to defend these programs in court. We think you have information to be able to defend all of the recommendations in the contract side and the recommendations for women workforce goals on the workforce side. For local hire program, we are suggesting that you maintain the race conscious goals, local hire goals as aspirational while building a targeted worker program that would be focused on specific neighborhoods of economic disadvantage. Recommendation 6 is if you're a federal contractor, you already have this, but if you don't, the city could require this as a condition of bidding or a condition of participating in a tax incentivized project, which is requiring a company-wide affirmative action efforts in the St. Louis metro area for ensuring non-discrimination in employment opportunities for different racial, ethnic, and gender groups. And this is the difference between what companies have to do to meet federal requirements and what they would need to do to meet your requirements is if they're a national or regional company, they have one affirmative action plan that they submit to have for the federal government. We're asking that to be St. Louis metro area specific. What are they doing in the St. Louis metro area to break down barriers that may be lasting effects of discrimination in the past and in current day? Developing a target worker program, we have a lot of details on that in our study. We have examples of where this has worked elsewhere. And then it needs expanding the program administration, very much like our recommendations for the contract equity side. This will not be successful if you do not have sufficient resources to operate this and to enforce it. That is the balance of our slides, and we want to entertain questions.
And
Again,
Dave,
this was very quick. We tried to beat within your timeline here.
yeah. No, I appreciate it, Dave, and the King team for all of your hard work again. One of my first questions, as we talk about the aspirational goals, specifically around the enterprise level contractors, are you recommending that our goals should be really focused on closing that gap in the disparity index, trying to achieve 100 across the board? For those disparities, recognizing the utilization versus the availability. There's still a significant gap for the majority of the contractors. So being able to close that gap is one thing that we should be looking at as we develop those goals. Is that correct?
Yes, Plaka, could you go back to the actions for the workforce contractor side? Thank you. Yes, so the overall aspirational goal consideration number 1 is really a mission statement for the city and SLDC. Long term, you would expect without a program that minority and women business participation ought to be X% of city and tax incentivized contract dollars. To get there, you do the steps 2 through 6.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the areas is on the contract goals program, which is not necessarily aspirational. You would lose a contract if you do not comply with that program, either meet a goal or show good faith efforts to meet a goal. That really, you will know you're being effective when you see that program closing the gap on disparities, not just for certain race and ethnic and gender groups, but all race and ethnic and gender groups that we examined in the study. And you have a ways to go.
Thank you. So I want to definitely open it up to other directors and alders that are on the call, because I know some of these, as Dave just mentioned, goals and considerations for the program will be really focused from the city level. It will take city action and really not led by SLDC, but overhaul across the city itself and county. So any questions from the directors here? Director Sean Spencer.
Good morning, everybody. I know this is a big challenge and a huge task to put all this information, in a 20-minute presentation. But when we approved this, one of the things that I was hoping to see out of it was really the breakdown per trade and really examining closely what's available in the marketplace per trade in a construction project. And Mr. Keene, if you could go back maybe to your first slide on the utilization versus availability, because that seems to me to be you're kind of lumping in all of the firms that are available on the enterprise level that are certified. You're going to go back a couple more slides there. One more. Yes, there. So if we've got, say, 100 demolition companies that are certified and we only have 5 plumbing companies, if I'm developing a project, I can only use one demo company and one other company. So could you maybe give us a little bit more clarity on how those numbers were used and how you came to those conclusions, and how that per trade may present some challenges for contractors and developers in the city?
Yes, I'm glad you asked that question. So this slide looks at all projects, all contracts, including tax incentivized projects for the city and SLDC. We've made the equivalent of these by industry. So there's a construction version of this. There's a construction prime contract version of this. There's a construction subcontract version of this. So we get in deep into the construction industry. To set the availability benchmarks, we did exactly what you're describing. We looked project by project. What was the prime contract on it? What was it for? How big was it? What were each subcontract on the project? Whether, regardless of who won the subcontract, whether it was a diverse firm or not, what was that for? What was the trade? And using some of the specific examples that you use here, how big was that subcontract? When was it awarded? And then we did an availability analysis for each one of those contract elements. So if it was plumbing, we looked at what would you expect the odds are of a minority women-owned firm winning that subcontract if you just said, well, a quarter or a third of the firms in the metro area that have expressed qualifications and interest in that work are minority or women-owned. And so you would say, well, the odds of winning that are 33%. In some areas, we found very limited MBE and WBE availability. In that case, the odds of a minority or women-owned firm winning that subcontractor contract might be 0. It might be because of the nature of the work, the trade, or it could be the size of the project, that there just weren't firms that bid on that size of project. My favorite example is paving, and you can pave a parking lot, or you can pave, a major highway or city street. What largely distinguishes those two types of work is the size of that work. And sometimes you see more availability, or a lot of times you see more availability for the smallest contracts and more limited availability of all firms for the biggest contracts. So our availability benchmarks are based on granular level for, say, construction, looking at each trade involved in a project. And we sliced and diced this many different ways. But the benchmarks really reflect what you're actually contracting for. And we were seeing if there were any differences, or could we explain any of the disparities just because of lack of availability of minority or women-owned firms. And overall, the answer is no. When you control for that, you still see disparities. Now, when you put a project together and a goal together, we're emphasizing this shift to look at the trades involved in a project and to set a very low goal or a very high goal, or a relatively high goal, based on what are the opportunities in those specific trades, what's the availability within those trades. So you really give the developer, the prime contractor, the both flexibility to meet the goal, but you've set a realistic goal that's achievable, and you're not setting your goals too low for projects where there's a lot of opportunity for minority women-owned firms, and you're not setting the goal too high for projects where there simply either aren't subcontracting opportunities, or for those where there are subcontracting opportunities, there just is very limited availability of minority women-owned firms. So that was a long way of answering, I think, a couple of your questions. Did I do that successfully?
Oh, I still want to get back to the trades and whether or not this report is going to outline where the city can focus more efforts getting more minority-owned businesses to get to a level of certification so they can participate. And being in, affordable housing development, that's a challenge. And without knowing those specific trades and really setting goals for those specific trades that we need to be able to have on the enterprise or certified level, this is just basically just general information that, helps us continue to know that we still have a lot of more work to do. So I'm just trying to get a little bit more detailed on what we're coming out of, this report with what are our goals around building up our capacity. So everybody has a fair shot at getting some of these jobs that we know that are happening throughout our city.
Yeah, we gave the city and the county data on who is available. So minority, women-owned firms, majority-owned firms by trade. So you have that for outreach, you have that for goal-setting purposes. And you got it something that's critically important for everyone to understand. Most minority and women-owned firms in the St. Louis metro area are not certified. And so they're one of the ways you can only be effective in your program. You're only reaching firms if they're eligible to participate and be counted.
Yeah.
And you have minority women-owned firms working on these projects that are not certified. So they're getting in the work without certification. But to have it be most effective and really most workable for the developers and prime contractors, you need more firms certified. And we have some recommendations on that as well. And this same list, the city will know of the available firms who's certified and who's not.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry it took up so much time. I appreciate it.
No, Sean, I think that's a great point that you made, though, is because the way in which Stacy and her team has to manage the goals now, they look at the various trades alongside the developers and the general contractors. And if they're unable to meet the goals that set kind of across the board standard for every project, then they just have to complete a good faith effort report, right, an assessment. But with us being able to have project specific goals and really understanding that availability going into a project, we're able to already account for that lack of availability potentially across a specific trade. So if a developer in GC isn't able to meet a goal in a particular bucket, we can help remedy that because we know we have that availability to be able to meet that goal. Right now, the way that the program is set up, if there isn't availability, we can't even offer up a way for that GC or developer to meet that goal because we don't have enough certified businesses. So one, we need to work on improving our certification process, which we'll talk about later in the agenda. And two, work on having project specific goals to ensure that we are connecting those women and minority owned businesses to those jobs that are available and make sure that they're utilized on projects. So those were some recommendations from the King team, and SLDC is really positioning ourselves strategically to be able to address that. One, through the Northside Economic Empowerment Center that's already established some of the new products, but then also, working through the certification and how do we get more firms certified and accelerate that process to be able to help developers and GCs meet those goals, but also to ensure that businesses that are certified, that are women and minority owned businesses, were able to get certified in a more accelerated fashion. So those both areas that we need to address as we move forward at SLDC.
Thank you.
So I think I'll pass it over to Alderwoman Kara Spencer.
Thank you, Director. I had just a couple questions. One, I noticed that disparity for the Hispanic community was so much greater, the sort of disparity for disparities, if you will, like that sort of availability versus access point. And I wondered if you could comment on that. I also was kind of thinking through, I really appreciate the recommendation of making goals. I think it's really critical to have goals in a general sense and benchmarks, if you will, that we can kind of measure success on. And was curious if we had any goals previously, and alongside of that, if we have taken a look at this data and the outcomes longitudinally. So how over the last 5 to 10 years, the city has performed against, how these metrics have kind of played out. And I apologize, I'm gonna have to hop off shortly to drive my son to school. Summer camp is kind of awkward. But those were my 3 main questions for the group at the moment.
Blanca, you might help me on the longitudinal answer. Let me jump in. For Hispanic American, we have these results drilled down so you see where there are disparities for Hispanic American owned firms, kind of why this overall disparity is occurring. And we have information about the marketplace as well. One of the things that we have found for many groups, and I think including Hispanic American owned firms, is you would expect to see even more firms in the marketplace, which we didn't have time to discuss in our remarks this morning, but that availability of 6.77% probably should be higher for Hispanic American owned firms. And we have that information in the report as well. So the economic development aspects of this is important. You should have more firms that are diverse, and they should be more successful, which you're leaving, a third or more of your local economy behind, because firms are, people are not able to form and sustain and successfully grow their businesses. So we have information about Hispanic American firms, organizations that specifically help Latino firms, and other recommendations in the study. Blanca, we looked at past studies and other studies in the metro area. I don't know if you have any comments on that.
No, I don't have any comments on that, but just to reiterate that the goals that we are proposing are project specific, are not race and gender group specific, as the city and SLDC are being approached as of now. Just wanted to talk about that difference here.
I guess I'm not really understanding. I guess my question would be, so see here on this graph, we have the utilization for the Hispanic American owned businesses is less than half of what the availability is. So the availability seems low for our population, and number 2, the utilization of this program seems extremely low in that population. I'm just noting it because it's so much lower, except with the Native American owned businesses. Those are really, really high disparities in use, and I'm wondering how that compares nationally to other cities that. And all these metrics, actually, how they kind of compare, how we kind of line up to how other cities are performing. And then number 2, kind of over time, how that may have shifted. But more broadly speaking, if the city, what the city's 3-year, 5-year goals were, and how we've performed, and what, looking longitudinally at all these sort of metrics.
Yeah, so really quickly, maybe Stacy, you can speak to the goals that we currently have in place to inform Alderwoman Spencer, the work that your team currently does. And then I can speak to some of the shifts that, we're considering as we move forward to ensure that we close this gap and increase availability as well as utilization. So Stacy, maybe you can talk about the current goals that we have in place now.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so currently we have workforce goals and we have contracting goals. So for contracting goals, we have for African American is 21%, for Asian and Native American it's 0.5%, and then for Hispanic it's 2%, and then for women it's 11%. So that's the contract side of it. And then for the workforce goals, oh, I don't want to say it wrong. Give me 1 second. I was just pulling that up to make sure I didn't give you the wrong, here we go, numbers. And then for our workforce, it is, days I do this and I can rattle it off. Now my mind just went blank. So for the workforce, oh, come on, Stacy, find these numbers. Here we
Yeah, and
go.
while you're looking at that, just
Oh.
in general, our study gives you more current information on the level of anticipated participation that you should have. It can influence your overall aspirational goals. We did get a few comments from Latino business owners that, hey, we're aware of the city's goals and they're way too low. So I just wanted to offer that, that would be way too low for Hispanic American owned firms. And our research bears that out. So overall, your utilization is in line with your goal for Hispanic American owned firms. That doesn't really matter to the disparity study because your current goal of say 2% ish was substantially below where it should have been or should be for Hispanic American owned firms, which is a bit closer to 7%.
Yeah, so Dave, like what struck me about those goals was on the African American side, the goal is pretty much equal to the availability, that 21%, but it's 1/3 of the availability in the Hispanic owned community. So just, I think it would be helpful if we kind of had a viewpoint of all those things. And again, it sounds like you have a lot of that data in the study itself. If you could pull that out for us, and then longitudinally, I think it's really important to understand if we're moving in the right direction, if the policies that we have in place are, moving us in the right direction or moving us away, from making progress in these areas where we clearly need to make progress.
Yeah, and that's twofold. And you asked the question, how do we do compared to other cities? Other cities would love to have 29% MBEWB participation. They don't. They might have 10% participation. So that number is a good number compared to other cities. It just happens to be not a good number when you look at what the potential opportunity is given the availability of minority or women-owned firms in the St. Louis market. So you have very high availability. You have availability on the order of, let's say, we've done work in Atlanta. We know what the Atlanta marketplace looks like. You're in that ballpark of what the opportunity is. And your results aren't necessarily different from Atlanta's, which has had a strong program for many, many years. So that's the celebration part of this. Hey, we got a lot more work to do, and the next steps are harder. It's a lot easier to get from a very low percentage to it's easier to go from 8% to 15% than from 29% to 43%. And it's going to really take capacity building of individual firms, really increasing so as some of the previous remarks indicated. It's going to be building up these firms and removing barriers in the overall marketplace. So the firms are strong and effective in competing for all the opportunities at the city, at the county, tax incentivized projects, and in the overall marketplace as well. So this is you need to set your sights higher and broader in terms of the broader marketplace. It's not just about city projects. It's not just about tax incentivized projects. It's about having opportunity throughout the marketplace. With the caveat, there are pockets of city contracting where your participation is not 29%. and you have a lot of work to do within the city and how it procures goods and services.
So Dave and team, I want to make sure we keep moving out of the essence of time here. Stacy, maybe you can rattle off those workforce goals
Yep,
for us real quick.
I sure can. Say, wait a minute, I'm ready now. You were like, we're moving after I found them. Okay. So for the current goals for workforce, it's 25% minority, 7% women, 20% apprentice, and 23% city residents.
So that's the goal that we shoot for right now as the program currently stands. But Alderwoman Spencer, to many of your comments, as we talk about the transition of the certification program, the certification program historically has kind of set separate from the compliance and monitoring, as well as some of the other work that we're doing at the Northside Economic Empowerment Center through our accelerator products of, supporting capacity building for small businesses and nonprofits to have access to capital, that capacity building support, as well as our supplier and mobilization fund for suppliers and contractors to get access to support their payroll and other mobilization costs. Those are the things that are really the major gaps in the availability and utilization. And so we need to really be focused on increasing the availability that be more reflective of our city's population, to your point. And I think that will take work on us to expand our certification process. And we've been in communication with the airport. We sent the letter over to the airport notifying them that we will be shifting our investment into them for the remainder of the calendar year 2024, providing an investment of $70,000, which is not for the full fiscal year, but for the remainder of this calendar year, and then really being able to expand our certification program here at SLDC to support the MSA that will ultimately increase the availability and then drive that utilization goal towards that availability, and then being able to really remedy these disparities. So as we think about the investments through the Northside Economic Empowerment Center, the Workforce Development Center being built on MLK, through the Monarch, it's really addressing many of the disparities and data points that have been highlighted in this program. So we'll move forward to the first resolution. There's no vote that's needed for the presentation on workforce and contract disparity studies. But one more note there is we will have a presentation to the HUD's committee next week in partnership with Chairwoman Shameen Clark-Hubbard, where we can go in deeper detail with the full board of aldermen and the HUD's committee to ensure that as we're recommending updates to legislation, they provide input, because that's a process that I know Alderwoman Shameen Clark-Hubbard and the HUD's committee will be leading through. Any final comments from you, Shameen? I want to make sure that we give you an opportunity before we move to that next resolution.
So much. Good morning, everyone, because I'm on my edge of my seat over here.
I know.
This is the work that I love. And so, that's what I was just gonna say. And so that I didn't take up too much time was to make sure that all of this information will be and can be shared in the HUD's committee next Tuesday at 11 a.m. And I didn't know if any of the questions that had been asked could possibly be followed up on and answered in their presentation as well. I was going to ask from Director Spencer, both Director Spencers for that matter, if any of that information can be shared. Thank you so much for this. This gives us another starting point. If you know me, I grew up watching my grandfather do this work, and 40, 50 years ago, even though we've made some wins and some strides here, I see we still to the point that's been made several times. We have a lot of work to do, and I'm here for it. Thank you.
Awesome. So thank you again, King team, for the presentation. As you noted, we're making progress. I think we are doing better than other peer cities and other cities across the country, but we have more work to do. So I'll move forward to the first resolution today, which is authorizing the execution of a contract with B2G Now for software and professional services to assist with minority and women-owned business enterprise certification. So Stacy, I'll pass it over to you to lead off that presentation.
Thank you, Chairman Richardson. Yes, I am before the board and the board of directors asking for you all to authorize the execution of a contract with B2G Now for the software and professional services to assist with the minority and women-owned business enterprise certification. This software is the current software that is being used by the airport. And as we're making our transition, we would like to be able to do this through sole sourcing with the constraints in time that we have to do this in. We want to be able to have apples to apples with the data that currently sits in the system, which has been in there since 2016 up to now. There will be a data migration into the B2G Now system that we would have so that we could move forward, so that as they are working on the backlog and working with the current applicants that they have in their pipeline to the end of the year, as you heard Chairman Richardson talk about, this will allow us to begin our work starting August 30th, taking new applications and begin to work with the companies through only becoming MBE, WBE certified. This system will, under the sole source, what the requirements are, we basically want to maintain the data that we currently have. So we're moving forward doing the exact same thing to keep that consistency for us. It will also, they're kind of like the only ones that we would be able to transfer the current data into to be able to go forward with that. And the need of the urgency, we would have like 90 days per se to get this process up and running and keep it kind of consistent as we want to streamline the process. This would be a 3-year contract. That would be no more than $175,000. In your package, you should have received a breakdown quote of what the cost would be over the next 3 years. You also got, I think that's Exhibit B. Exhibit A is their statement of work and the services that they will be providing us, along with the system for us to be able to do our online applications and communicate with the applicants. It would be able to be set on our current website, developstlouis.org. And you have the statement of work that's going to show the training and what they will be providing us over the next 3 years. Also, in that quote, it's broken out per item, what it's costing us, along with the migration. Everything is included. Starting up the system, they're going to need about, they're saying 10 to 12 weeks to get us all up and running. So that's one of the reasons we kind of need this sole source, and to be able to spend the 175 for the system. Any questions you have for me?
Some questions from the directors about this process. Again, it's the current certification database that is used at the airport, and really allowing SLDC, as we stand up and accelerate the work, to transition and transfer them in a consistent way. Director Gilbert.
Oh, wait, can I say 1 second? We do have someone here from B2G. Mr. Gordy is here on the panel. So if you have some very specific questions about the software, he would be able to answer that for you.
Thank you, Stacy.
Okay.
Director Gilbert.
Yeah, my question is, my usual one, where's this money coming from? Are we getting some pass-through or funding from the city to underwrite this? I mean, where are we getting the $175,000 from?
Yeah. So as of right now, Laura, as you know, we contribute, SLDC does $140,000 per year to the airport to help facilitate this. There's a tri-party agreement between St. Louis County, SLDC, and the airport to facilitate this program. We are in conversations right now with SLEDP, as well as St. Louis County, to help offset the additional cost that SLDC will have to incur in order to support this program. We also have fees that are charged on the compliance side of the work that we do, for the monitoring that we do for projects. And so in essence, the city isn't passing through dollars directly from the operating budget. However, as we are monitoring these projects, there's fees associated with the tax abatement that goes to Stacey's team to help facilitate this work. So it's coming kind of through our operational budget, but we are in conversations again with St. Louis County and SLDC to formalize an agreement in which they will help offset the additional cost going forward. I would say though as well through our ARPA funds that we've been able to capture to support our small business ecosystem, being able to leverage a portion of that interest towards this program to get it started is important. But in order to have that sustainability long term, we have to solidify those partnerships with SLEDP and also with St. Louis County to help offset some of these efforts. We're also having conversations with the Anchor Action Network about how they can utilize this program, recognizing they represent many of the major institutions and employers across the region. They are looking to centralize many of their supplier diversity programs. So having conversations with them, and then also working in coordination with Greater St. Louis Inc. and their Supply STL program in order to help increase the number of diverse suppliers and contractors. That's also part of the conversation. But today we're leveraging really our ARPA interests and then other operating costs right now that SLDC has at our disposal to operate these programs.
It's, we've used the interest on the ARPA money for a lot of stuff. Is there that much interest out there? I mean, I don't have a good feel for, what that pool is, and, we're deciding to use it and we don't have a number to look at. Have we utilized 50% of the interest or?
Yeah, so we are continuing to pool some of those, again, those ARPA interest funds to ensure that we are supporting efforts that extend beyond just the existing ARPA programs, but also other efforts such as our investments downtown, but then also these type of efforts to get them started and piloted, and then we can work to sustain them long term. Maybe that's something, Charlie, we can put together for our next board meeting in July, is having a full report out on that ARPA interest that's been accrued. So we can share that with the board of directors so they can have that at their fingertips to really understand the financial position that SLDC is in right now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Gilbert. Director Sean Spencer. You're on mute, sir.
I love the idea of bringing this in-house, but I definitely have some questions around the operations and that transition. Maybe you could talk a little bit about maybe the existing backlog and how that's expected to be taken care of, and then also looking at that project schedule and the standard timeframes. It looks like it's going to be several months before it can be implemented into SLDC's system, and just maybe talk a little bit about the sensitive financial information and protecting that as that transition happens. And just, we're taking on that responsibility. So we're saying we can do it better. And eventually we're going to have to show that, this is all working more efficiently.
Yeah, that's correct, Director Spencer. So the airport has a backlog of over 100 businesses in the pipeline right now to be either newly certified or getting their certifications updated that have to happen on an annual basis. And so that's why we are, continuing that investment through the end of the calendar year of 2024 to ensure they're able to clear that backlog of those 100+ businesses out. And then as we are transitioning to our own platform, our own version of B2G, there will still be communication between the airports program and SLDC's program. So we have that shared list of the businesses that are certified, whether it's through women, minority-owned programs, or the disadvantage and concession programs that will remain, that are funded federally, but will remain with the airport. And so having that consistency, and we're not going from one program, transitioning that sensitive data from one program to another, and having that shared responsibility. Jorge, the team with B2G now, we trust in their integrity of data confidentiality that's been upheld through several years at the airport will remain intact, and we don't have to shift it to another database that could create some privacy challenges as well. And that's again another reason why we went with the sole source approach in this matter.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Kara Spencer.
Thank you. I guess my question is about my concern. I think the other director Spencer brought up some of my concerns, but this seems like a pretty big shift. I think, one of the recommendations from the report that we just heard from this morning was to have a regional approach. And I think that is spot on. I guess I'm a little bit concerned about making sure that we have, it seems like we're pulling back from the airport, which was serving the city and county. And so I'd like to speak a little or hear a little bit about the regional approach. The other thing, I know yesterday was a holiday, but and I learned about this effort, I guess, Tuesday evening in the paper, and I'm sorry, I'm sure it was in our documents that I didn't read in advance, so my apologies for that. But got a lot of phone calls and emails and concerns yesterday from members of the public, contractors and representatives, and haven't been able to speak to it. So if you could speak a little bit to the outreach to the community about this kind of shift, because I wasn't able to answer questions about it, and I just want to make sure hear a little bit about that effort.
Yeah, and that's fair, Alderwoman Spencer. And so we've been in continuous conversations with the Northside Economic Empowerment Center. We hold continuous discussions and convenings with the contractors, with the labor unions, with all the unions across the region, not just focused on the city. And as we are pulling this in, this is not just a city certification. This is certifying businesses across the MSA. And so keeping that regional approach intact is very important for us, and understood that, this is not just a city program. This is not just a city certification. This certification supports the entire MSA. And just to be clear, for a context perspective, the city is the entity that established the ordinance. SLDC has always managed the process through our peer review committee, known as the PRC, that actually certifies these businesses. And the county simply had reciprocation, where they followed our direction. So as SLDC and the city certified these businesses, they didn't have a separate process. They just utilized our process. So it's just keeping it consistent with that approach there. Right now, again, as we talk about the disparity study, we have over 100 businesses that are still in the pipeline to be certified, and that's a challenge. And we truly believe at SLDC, given the other resources that we've put in place to create this ecosystem to support small women, minority-owned business enterprises and to grow and scale, we have the capacity to be able to help accelerate that on the ground resources. We have continuously provided this, what we call our digging through the weeds of certification on a weekly basis to women and minority-owned business enterprises that are interested in certification over the last year. So this isn't something that's new for us. We've continued to provide this support. Is now just formalizing this to ensure that as we are creating these project-specific goals, as we have recognized that we need to get more businesses certified, the capacity needs to increase. We need to be more efficient. We need to have a focus on how we tie those certifications to the utilization and availability for those projects, for city contracts, for contracts across the city and the region, that we are able to meet those goals and have some connectivity, and having it under our shop to be able to support that really allows us to have some flexibility to be able to meet those goals that we're setting. And if not, then, we're still at the mercy of, the capacity of other entities to be able to achieve that. And again, the airport has done very well, and they've been tremendous partners. However, we are looking to help build the capacity of the region by taking this approach. And we've had several conversations and convenings across, I think, over the last 2 years since the Northside Economic Empowerment Center has opened with that community. And we will continue to communicate how we can support them through this process.
Okay, I appreciate that. I guess for me, this was the first I had heard of kind of moving it out of the airport into SLDC, and I was surprised by the volume and the concerns that I received yesterday. It just seems like it's a fast move. I can really appreciate that all that work was happening behind the scenes. I wasn't necessarily aware of that work to make this shift. So from that perspective, I have, I'll just say that I'm and echoing kind of what I'm hearing. I just, there's been some concerns in the community that I'm hearing from. So there's a level of, I would say, additional questions that I think there's a little bit of a disconnect, at least. And I realized, Director, yesterday was a holiday, so I wasn't able to really have a lot of those conversations that I would have preferred to have had before taking a vote on something like this. And with that, I'll yield, because I also am in another committee hearing at the same time.
No problem. No problem. And again, I would say, Alderwoman Spencer, the feedback that we've heard continuously is that people can't get certified. The process is too cumbersome and they're in the pipeline too long. So
I definitely agree with that. I think that definitely is a problem, and I definitely think we need to make changes. I just think with a program as important as this, I just want to hear like a universal sort of support for a move. And I was just surprised by this. And I think others were as well.
Understood. Okay, thank you. So as I would like to move forward with the, if there are no other questions or comments from directors, move forward with the vote on this resolution, number 24 SLDC 939. Do I have a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved, Sean Spencer.
Second, Clark Hubbard.
Roll call vote, please.
Director Gilbert,
Aye.
Director Sean Spencer,
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard,
Aye.
Alderwoman Kara Spencer,
Woody present.
Director Reed, and Chair Richardson.
Aye. With the majority voting aye, the motion passes to approve resolution number 24 SLDC 939. The next item on the agenda is resolution number 24 SLDC 940, authorizing the issuance of a request for qualifications for minority and women-owned business enterprise certification consultants to provide supplemental certification capacity as we seek to transition this program in a very short order over the next 90 days. So Ms. Stacy Fowler, I pass it back over to you.
Thank you, Chairman Richardson. At this time, Board of Directors, we're requesting your authorization for SLDC to issue an RFQ for minority and women-owned business enterprises around certification consultants to create a short list. In this transition, we're not really sure what we're going to get and what it looks like, but we don't want to be behind the 8 ball. We would like to create a short list just to have it prepared should we need it for capacity building as we're working through this transition and working into the certification program. This would just allow us to have them, as I say, in our back pocket should we need them, and come back before you to let you know what we've come up against or what it looks like. It just gets the process started so that we're in the proper area for procurement. We're not asking for any resources other than us creating the short list. And we would appreciate you voting yes for us to do this.
So any questions from the directors about issuing this RFQ? Again, as Stacy said, this is about us being proactive to ensure that we're prepared. We're not committing any funds, any contracts today. It's just allowing us to have this short list of qualified consultants to help us as we may occur certain challenges as we move forward with this program. So any questions or comments? Okay. Hearing none, I would like to entertain a vote to approve resolution number 24 SLDC 940.
So move Gilbert.
Second.
With a motion and a second, can I have a roll call vote, please?
Director Gilbert,
Aye.
Director Sean Spencer,
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard,
Aye.
Alderwoman Kara Spencer. I think she's frozen.
Looks like
Director Reed
Aye.
and Chair Richardson.
Aye. With all aye votes, the motion passes to approve resolution number 24 SLDC 940. Thank you, Stacy, and thank you all for your support on this transition from the board. I really believe we're in a great position and we're really excited about this. We have been in continuous conversation with the airport. Rhonda, remember, who is the director of the airport, St. Louis County, SLEDP. They're all standing ready to support us through this transition. We have shared communication that will continue to be shared out. So this has been a regional approach. This is not SLDC stepping in and saying, this is something that we want to take over. We collectively came to this agreement and understanding that this is the best path forward for the region. So thank you all again for your support with moving this forward. The next resolution is resolution number 24 SLDC 941, authorizing agreement with the St. Louis Sports Commission, Inc. to establish a sports events attraction fund. And so as we look forward to partnering and attracting more exciting events downtown, specifically sports, as I call St. Louis Sports Capital USA. We have a lot of opportunity that I think we're missing out on, and a lot of potential for us to continue to grow our downtown and our city overall. I'll pass it over to our Vice President of Strategic Partnerships and Initiatives, Mr. Steve Davis, to present this resolution, then over to Mark Schwerber, who is the head of our sports commission here in the area. So Steve, take it over.
Thank you, Chairman Richardson, and I definitely second that on Sports City USA, and good morning to everyone. Switching gears here, this resolution would authorize the St. Louis Development Corporation to enter into an agreement with the St. Louis Sports Commission to provide funding to increase St. Louis's competitiveness when we're looking to attract large-scale sporting and entertainment events, especially against our peer cities. If you think about Indianapolis or like Kansas City, who have recently been awarded some major events that we were competing for. The funding for this program is not to exceed $500,000 and would be in the form of a revenue backstop or guarantee. This guarantee will be utilized when the City of St. Louis and the Sports Commission submit bids for large-scale sports event, ensuring that potential event hosts will be financially viable or whole when choosing St. Louis as a host city. So to provide additional context, we did invite Mark Schreiber with the Sports Commission. So I will turn it over to you, sir.
Stephen, thank you so much. And Neil, many thanks to all of you. Good morning. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to this. And it's a big deal to us that Neil and Stephen and the entire staff there understand the opportunities that we have before us and the challenges we face. And I really appreciate that in seeking to support us, Neil has suggested an approach that makes great sense for SLDC and the Sports Commission. This proposed sports events attraction fund will boost our efforts to bring major sporting events to St. Louis and make an economic and social impact on the city and its residents. And before I get too far into the fun concept, I just want to take a moment, especially for those who may be unfamiliar with the Sports Commission, to provide a little bit of background on our organization. We're an independent, privately funded nonprofit organization. We've been around for 35 years. And in that time, we've generated $1 billion in economic impact for our region. Our mission is to make St. Louis a better place to live, visit, work, and play through sports. And the primary way we do that is by bidding for, attracting, creating, and managing major high-profile, high-impact sporting events for the community. These events generate significant visitor spending and tax revenue. They support jobs in the tourism and hospitality industries. They bring much needed activity to downtown, and they showcase St. Louis at its best. Just a few of the events that we've brought to St. Louis include the men's and women's Final Fours, the NCAA Wrestling Championships, the U.S. Olympic Gymnastics Trials, last fall's Missouri-Memphis football game at the Dome, and much, much more. Next April, we'll host the NCAA Frozen Four at Enterprise Center. We also produce the nationally televised Musial Awards that take place annually at Stiefel Theater. It's a priority for our organization to do all we can to grow and strengthen the city of St. Louis. We want to make this an even more attractive place to live and visit and bring vibrancy to downtown and our neighborhoods. Over the years, we've had great success in our industry. Rights holders have faith in us and trust that St. Louis will do an outstanding job hosting their events. They know this is a great sports town with great fans, facilities, and a city setup that's conducive to successful events. The challenge for us is that our industry is highly competitive. Many cities have upped their game because they realize the value and the power of sports tourism. They aggressively pursue events and devote resources from the public sector to those efforts. Now, here in St. Louis, other than support that we receive from the state's amateur sports tax credit, our efforts are fueled entirely by the private sector. And that's not sustainable. And the results of recent bids illustrate that the lack of financial competitiveness that we have is hurting us. The U.S. Olympic swimming trials, the gymnastics trials, and the World Juniors International Hockey Championship are examples of recent bids where we fell short financially and lost out to other cities. So let's turn our attention forward. And while direct financial support of the Sports Commission in our bids would be wonderful, the idea of SLDC serving as a backstop to our bids is a significant step forward for us. A current bid that we're working on provides an excellent example of how this would work. On Monday, we submitted a bid to host the 2026 U.S. Figure Skating Championships. Now, this event hits on all the criteria that we focus on when we pursue an event for St. Louis. It'll bring thousands of visitors to the community, resulting in upwards of $10 million in direct spending and creating hundreds of thousands of dollars in new tax revenue for the city. It takes place January 3rd to the 11th, and that's huge, of course, to have a week-long event with that many visitors coming here in the middle of the winter. The event has significant national TV coverage on NBC, putting St. Louis in a positive spotlight. And with 2026 being an Olympic year, it precedes the Winter Games and will determine who makes the Olympic team. Because of the event's appeal to a city, U.S. figure skating is able to require a 7-figure guarantee. What that means is the Sports Commission must cover the guarantee plus all event expenses. To do that, we rely on ticket sales, local sponsorships, and other revenue sources. But that target number to cover the guarantee and expenses is still a stretch for us and presents a significant risk to the Nonprofit Sports Commission. So to be able to know that if we fall short, we can tap into the fund SLDC is proposing, that gives me great confidence that we can move forward and put forth a competitive bid. Now, important to note, our goal and intent is that the event has a strong financial performance and we don't have to dip into the amount SLDC has set aside. We've been reasonable and thoughtful with our revenue projections, and we're optimistic we'll hit those numbers. But again, the SLDC backstop strengthens our bid It's critical insurance for us. In this case, if for any reason ticket or sponsorship sales fall short. And to be able to tell US Figure Skating that our city, in the form of the SLDC, is stepping up and understands the value of the event, well, that only enhances our bid and gives US Figure Skating further confidence in St. Louis. That's all very meaningful. Well, I use the Figure Skating Championships example. I also want to note that we're in the midst of the bid process for multiple future NCAA championships, including basketball, wrestling, and women's volleyball. All would have a huge impact on the community. And in the case of wrestling and volleyball, significant guarantees are required. The proposed fund from SLDC not only gives us the confidence to move forward with bids, it also allows us to push our guarantees higher, giving us an important edge over other cities. Even if we need to tap into the SLDC fund, there is no doubt, based on just the tax revenue generated alone, the city will get a return on its investment. And it's worth remembering just how important these events are to those in the hospitality industry and those who work at the host venues like Enterprise Center. They generate added income for ushers, vendors, parking attendants, and others, a tremendous benefit to the city and its residents. Furthermore, as we all look to strengthen downtown, the more events we can bring to downtown, the better. As I said, these events bring vibrancy, and by filling downtown with fans and visitors, they contribute to public safety. Finally, I just want to note, on top of all of that, it's a focus for us, and this is called out in our figure skating bid, that the event be inclusive and for all St. Louisans. We want residents in all neighborhoods to be able to experience the event and be inspired by the Olympic level athletes that will be competing here. Having the SLDC backstop gives us flexibility to potentially allocate tickets that can be provided to young people in underserved areas of the city, so all St. Louisans can feel part of the event and part of the experience. So on behalf of our staff and our board here at the Sports Commission, thank you so much for the consideration and support of this fund. Grateful for the chance to partner with Neil and his team to make great things happen for St. Louis and keep St. Louis Sports City, USA. So thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Terrific presentation. And, I just want to note just a point of context and operations here, that the funds will remain in the SLDC bank account, continuing to be invested by SLDC until the point in which there needs to be a investment from the fund to support any revenue replacement there. But as Mark laid out, these events are in 2026 and 2027. So again, those funds will remain in SLDC bank accounts until those things are established. Director Gilbert, I think I may be able to understand what one of your questions may be. And again, I've been in deep conversations with Charlie and the team, again, about our financial position and the funds that we have available from our ongoing operations, as well as our investments from ARPA. And again, we will get you that full description, but that's where these funds will be set aside from. So they will be a restricted kind of asset on our balance sheet. However, it will remain on the SLDC balance sheet until the Sports Commission would need any funds from those replacements. But as Mark laid out, his goal is to be able to win the event. And then once he wins the event, then he can go out and sell sponsorships and other packages of tickets to help offset, the guarantee or revenue replacement. So Director Gilbert, I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah, but that you anticipated my question. My, primary thing was that somehow we're showing that as a restricted asset or restricted fund on our balance sheet or, internally. So we know we've made a commitment. We've got to somehow hold on to that money.
Yes, no,
Thank you.
for sure. Most definitely. Thank you, Director Gilbert. Director Sean Spencer. You're on mute if you're talking.
Yep.
There you go.
As a dad who's taking a second trip to Kansas City for a regional soccer tournament and esports a few weeks ago. 100% behind whatever it takes for us to win these awards and to fill our streets and to fill our hotel rooms and our restaurants. One of the questions that I think we really need to ask is, looking back, Mark, is there an example where these funds would have been beneficial for a specific event that came and didn't meet the revenue goals? Just to put some more context around our risk that we're taking here.
Yes, that's a very good question. You're asking more events we hosted
Right.
that would not meet. So a great example of that was the last women's Final Four that we hosted. That goes back to 2009. The women's Final Four requires a significant fundraising investment of the community to host. And we had the unfortunate circumstance then of kind of coming out of the recession and hosting that event. And so we really struggled, and there was a bit of a shortfall, and we had to take a little bit of a loss on that event. So that would be one that I would point to as a great example of what you're asking.
Yeah, that's 15 years ago. And like you said, that timing just didn't work out for that particular event. I guess my second question would be, what else can SLDC do to support you and your organization and bringing more of these events to St. Louis? We've got, 70,000 foot or person venue downtown that not a lot of, cities can say that they have. And I know there's a lot more opportunity. I went to the Mizzou Memphis game, had a great time, would love to see, that coming back every year. So what are the other things that SLDC can do to support you?
This right here is a huge step. I think beyond that, and Neil has just demonstrated just sort of the great understanding of what we do. And I think what we need in our community is help getting everybody on board, getting everybody on the same page here in the city. That, I just got back last night from Indianapolis and went to the U.S. Olympic swimming trials there. They put, hopefully some of you have seen this on NBC. They put a pool in Lucas Oil Stadium, their football stadium. It is a transformational event. Indy is filled with tens of thousands of people all week for that event. And that happens because Indianapolis has come together and they had a coordinated strategy around sports to say, we're going to use sports development to propel this community forward. And I find that sometimes lacking here locally. And I think if we can get ourselves more focused, and that can be anything from sort of the strategy for the events we go after to what we do with the Dome at America Center.
Right.
We need a concerted effort. And if this group, can help lead that way, spread the good word, that would be tremendously advantageous. And I think it can be a big boost to downtown and a big boost overall to the city.
Yeah, it's a great point. We spent a lot of time in Indianapolis too. They planted a flag a long time ago that they wanted to be the amateur sports capital of the country. And they went after that goal. And that's something that we certainly have the possibility and the facilities to do the same thing.
Exactly.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, directors. I'll keep us moving. And, I don't think anyone on this board or in the city of St. Louis likes to lose. So we want to make ourselves as competitive as possible. And I truly believe this fund allows us to do so. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve resolution number 24 SLDC 941.
So move, Gilbert.
Second.
With a motion and a second, can I have a roll call vote, please?
Director Gilbert,
Aye.
Director Sean Spencer,
We didn't catch that, Sean. Sorry.
Aye.
Alderwoman Park Hubbard. Aye. Alderwoman Kara Spencer,
Aye.
Director Reed,
Aye.
and Chair Richardson.
Aye. With all I votes, the motion passes to approve resolution number 24 SLDC 941. Mark, thanks again, sir. We'll be in contact to ensure that we are here to support. SLDC stands ready to partner with the Sports Commission on winning these major events. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you very much. Very grateful on behalf of all of us here. So thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you. So the last resolution that we have before you all today is the approval of our fiscal year 2025 budget through resolution number 24 SLDC 942. I'll pass it over to Mr. Charlie Hunt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
This is an annual budget report that we like to do in June, but it's happened that we approved this post-June in the past, but we're right on target this year. The budget is for the St. Louis Development Corporation, the administrative portion. The program portions are brought to you piecemeal and are revenue neutral. Whatever grants we get in, we push out the door. But this administrative budget covers the period July 1 of 24 through June 30th of 25. Hence, it's termed the FY25 budget. We're on the same fiscal year as the city, and it supports the work of SLDC both here at the Empowerment Center and at the maintenance office in the field, at BAC over at City Hall, and it's I believe 14 pages long, 13 pages long. The page 2 is an overview and highlight page, and it's just notes that kind of summarize what's on the following pages. And I'm not going to go read through that, but the way up at the top, it says the increase in the budget from FY25 to FY25 from FY24 is 1%. If you the next page is a comparative budget page that compares FY23, 24, and 25. The budget for 24 was 15,905. The budget for 25 is 16,081. On that page, it's a top and bottom half. The top half is the revenue that SLDC generates, and that is subdivided into 3 components: the CDBG funding, and that's for the regular block grant programs that CDA provides to SLDC through work program contracts. We receive about $1.5 million from CDA through those various work programs. The second component in revenue is the SLDC agencies themselves, and they're listed: the Port Authority, LRA, PIE, IDA, LCRA, LDC. Each of those agencies we present budgets to those particular agencies, and within those resolutions that are to be still yet to be approved, but I think the only one that's approved it is the Port Authority. But there will be a consensus transfer from those agencies to SLDC to support the administrative office work of SLDC for those agencies. Each of those agencies had its own staff many years ago, and those staffs were combined under SLDC, and SLDC in return receives an annual funding stipend from each agency. those particular agencies earn their revenue through a number of ways, like the port has leases up and down the river. The Land Reutilization Authority, LRA, sells land. IDA does bond fees, LDC loan fees, and LCRA and PIE development fees, and LCRA also has parking revenue. That type of operation support these transfers. The third component is a category that lumps in a bunch of different items that SLDC receives funds from, and those are listed individually on page 6. They total 9.46, which is a significant portion of the revenue. I'll get to page 6 as I walk through this document. And under expense, you can see the items there that are listed are expense items total, the revenue items, 16,081, an increase of 176,000 from the prior year. It's a mainly personnel-driven budget, where 70% of our cost is under personnel, and then the other categories we've mentioned in the past, but in particular, we talked a little bit about the contract certification support that we had been given to the airport. We reduced that from 140 to 70 so that the airport could close out existing backlog. And the fifth item there is our agreement with the St. Louis County Economic Development Partnership, and that's $1 million to support their work to assist us with loan program and our business retention, some bonding, a lot of IDA work in there, and assisting us with business retention or attraction. The other item I want to mention in this is the steady reduction in the consultant line item. This is near and dear to Neil's heart. 2 years ago, we were at 1.9, and now we're at 870. And there's also a breakdown in that later in the report. The next 2 pages deal with more detail on the expense side of the budget. There is a small layer under personnel where I listed in a narrative 106 full-time positions. That's actually 103. There's a 103 that was called to my attention last night by Commissioner Spencer. But those numbers tie into those expense numbers on page 3. Then on page 6 is the other administrative revenue. The third column is the current year, FY25. It's $9,546,000 in total revenue. The bigger items in there are the SLDC ARPA funding of $2.2 million, and then the new markets fees that SLDC has generated both currently and in the past of $2.4 million, and then all the other categories that are listed there. The next page is our consultant page. The top portion of the consultant page, the 870, is the number that ties into the budget page. List all the items there of those consultants. And then below that is special funding consultants that SLDC is contracted with. And that list is also provided there. The following that is the SLDC organizational staffing. It lists our departments and sub-departments within departments. And it hasn't changed a whole lot from last year, but it shows whether it was in last year's budget, whether it's currently occupied, and whether it's in this year's budget. And that's pretty much a 30,000-foot presentation of this document. And I'll open it up to any questions if anybody has it.
Yeah, no, thank you, Charlie. And just to clarify on the consultant piece, near and dear to my heart, it's near and dear to me to make sure that we're managing those costs appropriately, recognizing that, you know, with us receiving over $109 million from local ARPA funds and another $15 million from the state to manage those ARPA funds. It took us to bring on, though, that additional capacity to help accelerate those programs. I mean, we're looking at almost 14 to 15 programs that SLDC had to stand up in a very, very short period of time. And now as we're looking to scale those back and now moving towards implementation, that's why you've seen an increase in the personnel and a decrease in the consultants. And then as those programs begin to sunset through 2026, we have a plan to either transition some of those staff to full-time positions or conclude those positions based on the term of the various programs. So again, as you see in the fiscal year 23 compared to our request for fiscal year 25 for consultants, you see almost over $1 million decrease over that time period from the consultant perspective. But then you almost see another $1 million plus increase in personnel to help implement and facilitate those programs. So just wanted to make sure that you all were aware of that component. But again, just continuing to move forward on expanding our work and expanding the Economic Justice Action Plan. And I believe our budget is reflective of that. I plan to have SLEDP come back in July for our July board meeting. I know we weren't going to have time today to get through everything. So having them come back in July to really talk about their plan for fiscal year 25, inclusive of supporting us on our new certification program that we're standing up at SLDC. So just wanted to throw that out there, and I'll open it up to any questions that the directors may have as it relates to the budget. Director Spencer, Sean Spencer.
You know me for quite some time, Neil, and I appreciate you getting in front of that $1 million expense that's on our budget that I have a tendency to ask about. So thank you for that. Looking at the proposed budget, you know, this is a really tough budget to assemble and also to look through. But what I'm seeing is the Port Authority may see like a 30% increase in the revenue back to SLDC. Is there a reason why specifically that is so much higher this particular year? And then also just looking at the LCRA and the current, you know, interest rates in the market for new development, I just wanted to make a comment that, you know, that's in line with previous years. So just keep an eye on that. That may be challenging. And otherwise, I think it looks good. Thank you.
Yeah. So I would say from a revenue perspective, what's been able to be generated from the great work that Susan Taylor has been able to perform of actually increasing those lease rates over the prior to 2021, we hadn't really seen an increase in those port leases. Susan really took a keen eye on ensuring that as we have the port almost 100% leased right now, that there's a high demand there that we're missing out on. And being able to now, as those leases are beginning to expire or be renewed, we can renegotiate at a more competitive rate. And then contribute to the overall support of the operations of SLDC, the Port Authority, as well as other investments down on the landing. And so that's why we've also played a more continuous effort in working with Laclede Landing, Main Street as one example from an investment that we've made with them to help support their hiring of a new executive director, which was just completed, and then also being in conversations with Brian Marsh, who leads Caesars Entertainment here in the city of St. Louis, down at the Horseshoe Casino, talking through how we partner together more strategically and invest in the port and other areas along the port to drive entertainment growth and economic development activity. And so that's why we've seen an increase in revenue. And so we want to ensure that we have the revenue and SLDC operations to support those initiatives happening along the landing, and that we're not constrained or having to go back to the port at a later time to request funds to support these efforts. So it's been more proactive. I don't know if Charlie, you have anything else to add there?
No, that's pretty good. We also, Neil, as you're well aware, the Keene report that everybody just heard was also mandated that SLDC perform that task without funding. So this helps us recapture some of that expense that the consultant incurred in putting that together over a 2-year period.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the directors? Hearing none, I would like to entertain a motion to approve resolution number 24 SLDC 942.
So move, Gilbert.
Second.
With a motion and a second, can I have a roll call vote, please?
Director Gilbert,
Is that me? I it broke
Yeah.
up.
Yes, yes.
Aye.
Thank you.
Director Sean Spencer,
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Aye. Alderwoman Kara Spencer. She's present. Director Reed
Aye.
and Chair Richardson.
Aye. With all present voting aye, the motion passes to approve resolution number 24 SLDC 942. And that concludes our resolutions for fiscal year 24. Exciting, great work, Board of Directors, and really appreciate your contributions throughout the fiscal year. In our last 7 minutes, I want to give a quick update on the North St. Louis grant program. I know there's been some discussions about it, and we will hold a special board meeting next week on June 27th to approve the list of awardees. So really excited about that. But we do want to give a quick update to make sure that the board is prepared for the information that's coming next week, over the next week, because you will receive packages of the criteria as well as the awardees and how they were selected and at what dollar amount. So then you all can be prepared to ask any questions or provide any feedback and really understand the full process that we went through in preparation for that special board meeting, which I'm excited to hold on June 27th. So with that, can we start up the presentation? I know Lorna and Lance are available to kind of walk through this. So Lorna, I'll pass it to you. You want to get started?
Great. Good morning, directors. The first slide we see here is just an update on the timeline. So over to the right, near the bottom, it's what's been going on in May and June since we had our one-on-one sessions in March and April. So most importantly is that Morgan Graves, our community engagement consultant, has been going out and doing the viability assessments. They've completed about 75 so far. And so what they actually do is go to the business site to ensure that there is a viable business working out of the geographical location, that address that they submitted on their application. So that work is going on, and it's an important part, the last step of eligibility before we can award funds to the businesses. Can we do the next slide? Right, so here is a breakdown of the funding of the $32 million that we've talked about in the past. A change to this section is that one of the things we did on the one-on-one was to ask the business to declare what pot of funding they were applying for, because there was a lot of confusion in what stabilization was, what operational expansion was, and community enhancement. We talked about stabilization being first come, first serve. So for that pot, we had originally put in or reserved $3 million. After the declarations were reviewed, we've got about 100 applicants at $1.5 million. So with that freed up $1.5 million that we've now moved over to our $2 million, I'm sorry, to our operational expansion grants to increase that pot to $8 million. So that's the change there. If we can do the next slide. And again, this is just overall from all the applicants, what the dollar amounts look like. We had requests of $416 million, 700 applications, and 463 are still under consideration. Next, please. So today on our capacity building, we have funded 137 businesses either at $2,500 or $5,000, depending on whether or not they completed one or both components of the capacity building program, for a total of $582,500 that has been dispersed so far. On the stabilization of the 97 businesses, 50 of them have cleared CBI and the viability assessment. So we are going to invite them tomorrow or Friday to come into the Empowerment Center to get an overview and instruction on how to complete their grant agreement for the $15,000, and that will have dispersed $750,000 in the next week or so. On both the competitive grants, operational expansion, and the community enhancement, we are finalizing those reviews and those awards that will be presented to you and announced to the public next Thursday. Next slide, please. And then this is a quick overview. So for instance, for the training academy, what was the courses provided for the training academy at $2,500 for the capacity building. And then for the financial assessment, the work that Grow America is doing with the businesses to help them create, if they don't already have, financial records for their businesses. So on the stabilization, first come, first serve, it was pretty easy. So after your completeness review, they submitted the application, it was complete, and all the required documents, and they had a viability assessment conducted and report made. They went on to the next step. If they declared that they understood that they were opting out of the competitive program and were just opting for the $15,000 for stabilization, they were approved. So again, there was about 97 applicants, 50 of them that we can begin the funding process. On the operational expansion side, which we're currently in the process of that review, of course, stage one is the completeness, again, the viability assessment. And by the time we announce, I think, which is very important for us all to understand, when we announce these awards next week, they will be contingent on the viability assessment for some of them. The initial 227 businesses have had their viability assessment conducted, completed, and reported by Grow America. Morgan Graves is conducting the ones for all the folks that applied after August 1. So they've completed about, like I said, 75, and maybe we have another 150, maybe 200 to go on that end. So even though they haven't had their viability assessment visit completed, based on the information in their application, if they should be approved as viable, then they will be funded. So the list will go out contingent upon the approval of their viability assessment report. So that's stage one. Stage two is, these are some of the rating factors we will get into in more detail as the rating factors comply with what our goals are on the EJAP. So stage 2, the economic justice and alignment filter. 3 is the impact evaluation. And then because these funds, we don't anticipate being more than $125,000 for any business, they won't have to go to our substantial award committee. So when we bring them to you all with the dollar amount, your approval will be the final approval before disbursement of the funds for the operational expansion. And then the next slide, I'll let Lance, but I'll turn it over to Lance to give the detail on the community enhancement and evaluation.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Lorna. Director, it's always a privilege to engage with you. But as Lorna has communicated, each process of this program has real critical stages as we move forward in the evaluation. As it relates to the community enhancement evaluation process, I want to be clear, there's multiple kind of pots within this program. There is the facade improvement, there is new construction, and there's also rehabilitation of an existing site, as well as a threshold of community need if there is a business that is moving into the geographic area that has ownership and station in a site prior to the completion or the closing of the application deadline in October. So the first stage, again, is pretty consistent across all programs over completeness, business viability, eligibility review. Stage 2 is the economic justice alignment filters, which is 100 points, really focused on geography and the overall nature of the application. Stage 3 is the economic justice impact evaluation, focused on qualifications, financial feasibility, relationship to economic justice action plan goals, as well as community impact. I want to provide real clarity that based upon the size of these programs, or this program specifically, during stage 3, each application has been reviewed by 3 reviewers to ensure that there's equity across the evaluation and determination of project feasibility and financial feasibility in the process. That process would be moving forward this afternoon at 1 p.m. where we have our staff executive review of the final recommendations or the projects coming out of stage 3. And then that information will get reviewed by CDA tomorrow, and a package will be moved forward to the substantial awards committee meeting, which is being held on Monday, the 24th. And that committee is apprised of someone from the mayor's office, the comptroller's office, and a representative from the Board of Aldermen Council President's office in that group. And then post that recommendation review, we will bring those final recommendations to this body in the special board meeting being held on June 27th. So we're really excited about this program being able to get things moved forward and get dollars rolling. As Lorna mentioned, all funding recommendations will be contingent upon CBI clearance as well as the completeness of a business viability assessment. So I'll yield the floor back to Director Richardson as we move forward with this meeting.
So again, as you all can see, this has been a very lengthy process and went through strong assessment. Again, our goal here is to ensure that we're making some strong decisions on awards, recognizing that we received from those businesses that are under consideration over 450 of those businesses, $400+ million of requests from those 460 businesses, really dwindling it down to those that could be awarded, just over $30 million. It's not an easy task, but we want to ensure that all applicants have the ability to either build their capacity and grow their institutions or scale and drive impact in those neighborhoods that need these resources the most. So we are happy to be able to finally announce this come June 27th, next Thursday, as we move. So with that, I have one last comment on my agenda is welcoming our new Executive Vice President, and Chief Operating Officer, Ms. Stephanie Greasy, who is a tremendous leader, has a tremendous background in legal, HR, finance, spending some time with her at U.S. Bank Community Development Corporation, and also her time at Midwest Bank Center. She has not only a legal and operations background, but a strong finance and economic development background. As many of you know, this has been a long time coming to find the right person to lead our operations, but really excited to have her on board, and I really believe it was worth the wait. Is Stephanie, were you on the call today?
Hi, Neil. How are
Hey,
you?
Steve. How you doing? So I just wanted to make sure everyone had a chance to hear your voice and see your face if you were able to join on camera. But if not, we'll make sure they see your face next time. There you go.
Hi,
Hi,
everyone.
Stephanie.
Nice to see you all. Hi, Laura.
Hi.
When are you going to bring your you should bring your grandbaby on these calls.
Oh,
Just
yes.
kidding. Just kidding.
It's a big smile.
I know. I love it. All right. Good to see you all. Thanks so much. Looking forward to working with you.
Thanks, Stephanie. Lance, did you have your hand raised?
That was unintentional, sir. Apologize.
All right, thank you. Well, I truly appreciate the time. I know this was a long, extended board meeting, 2 hours and 5 minutes here now. So with that, our next board meeting, our special board meeting, will be held on June 27th. But our next regular scheduled board meeting, it will be Thursday, July 18th at 8 a.m. And so we'll be continuously sending out details in preparation for that June 27th announcement. Lance and Lorna are leading and doing a tremendous job of accelerating this work to ensure we get these announcements out and get this money in the hands of these businesses in North City. So with that, I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
A second.
With a motion and a second, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all again. Have a
Thank you.
great rest of your day. Thank you.
Well, you didn't sit in the sun yesterday, you didn't sit in the sun the day before that, and you didn't sit in the sun the day